Hello and welcome to today's webinar. On behalf of International Airport Review and IATA, I'd like to thank you all for attending. I'm your moderator, Tara Nolan, Editor of International Airport Review. Today's speakers will be Maureen Salen-Brown, Project Manager of RFID at IATA, Magali Kolo, Project Manager of End-to-End Baggage at IATA, and Andrew Price, Head of Global Baggage Operations at IATA. Following their presentation, we will move on to a live question and answer session where you can pose questions to today's speakers. You can submit questions at any point during the webinar using the questions panel situated in the menu on the right. I will now pass over to today's first keynote speaker, Maureen Salen-Brown.
Thanks, Tara, and hello, everybody. So today's webinar will cover 3 modules. What is the IATA RFID priority? Why should the industry transition to RFID? And how can it do so? And we'd like today's session to be interactive, so there will be a poll organized at the end of each module to check everyone's understanding on what's being presented. And we would really like to hear from you, so you will have the opportunity to ask your questions at the end of the webinar, and you will also have the possibility to ask questions after the webinar, and we will be following up with you. Okay, so for the first module of this webinar, we thought we would introduce what the IATA RFID priority is and how we got to prioritizing RFID for baggage tracking. But first, who are we? Who is IATA? So the International Air Transport Association, as most of you may know, is a non-profit organization made of 292 airlines, on behalf of who we provide advocacy and build standards, with the objective to work together to shape the future growth of a safe, secure, and sustainable air transport industry that connects and enriches our world. And to achieve this vision, we also work in close collaboration with almost 500 strategic partners. Okay, so let's zoom in on standards. So one of our core activities as a trade association is to develop global standards for our industry and ensure they get adopted. So the standards we develop touch on key topics relevant for our stakeholders in the air transport industry, and baggage services is one of them. So one of the standards we've developed for baggage touch upon the exciting subject of identification and tracking of baggage through RFID, radio frequency identification. So I'd now like to give you an overview of the main activities that took place at IATA around the development of the RFID standards last year and up to now. So in 2018, our RFID standard, which is called Recommended Practice 1740C, and which really sets the RFID specification for interline luggage, was approved. And that was a big step, and we will explain in the third module of this webinar what you can find in the RFID standard. Another key milestone in 2018 was when the IATA Board of Governors, which is composed of airline CEOs, asked us if the industry was ready for RFID. So we published a global development plan that showed the ability for the RFID supply chain to provide sufficient baggage labels based on our conversations with chip manufacturers, inlay providers, and label converters. And we also reported that there is a willingness from the industry to adopt the technology. So we surveyed with ACI last August the top 75 airports. Those who responded represent half of the volume of global passengers, and what they told us is that 70% of them use or plan to use RFID in the next 1 to 3 years, and 52% are already working on a business case. So pretty positive. And this led to a reaffirmed commitment from the IATA Board of Governors, who asked us to work on an RFID resolution plan for June 2019. And in 2018, IATA also published a compelling end-to-end baggage business case, which highlights the benefits for the industry, and we will present this in the second module of this webinar. So all this created, of course, a strong momentum for this year in 2019. So in May, we published the RFID roadmap as well as the RFID implementation guide on our newly created webpage dedicated to RFID. As part of our roadmap, we started to actively engage airports and airlines. And based on these interactions, we started getting suggestions and ideas for additional guidance tools to support adoption globally. And most importantly, in June 2019, the IATA annual general meeting adopted the proposed resolution on RFID, which was a key objective for all of us. So let's zoom in on the AGM resolution to fully understand what it means. So in June, the 75th annual general meeting, which is our ultimate decision-making body, unanimously adopted a resolution supporting the global deployment of RFID for baggage tracking and the implementation of modern baggage messaging standards to more accurately track passengers' bags at all times. So, under the resolution, airlines committed to transitioning from traditional baggage labels to baggage labels that would include an RFID inlay in addition to the existing barcode. Airlines also committed to using the new data provided by RFID to enact processes with airport and ground handlers that prevent baggage mishandling. So you may wonder, what's different with the AGM resolution? How different it is from our conference resolution that you may be familiar with? So it's indeed a different adoption mechanism, but it is just as binding to our airline members. And what it does is that it really sets the direction for the industry. And this is how our air transport industry shows commitment to an RFID future. Of course, we don't expect an airline to start implementing RFID globally, but we will start working with major airports. And that's our main objective and target for this year and the next 2 years. So what we need is commitment from airports. So specifically for this year, we need 10 airports with more than 25 million passengers and 4 airports with 10 million passengers to commit to installing the RFID infrastructure so that our airline members can use RFID tags. And why is RFID considered a priority? It's because our airline members have clearly indicated that this is the way the industry should go in the next couple of years. So we have included here some quotes from the airline representatives who sit at the board and who were present at the AGM when the resolution was voted, as we thought it would be more meaningful if you heard directly from them. So as you can see, the CEO of Kenya Airways explained, RFID at the airport is to know exactly and in real time where your bag is. Austrian airline adds, it is very much needed to have a standard such as RFID in the industry that everybody can use. The CEO of KLM summarizes, technology such as RFID has endless opportunities to get customers' experience to the next level. And finally, the CEO of Air New Zealand confirmed, yes, embracing new technologies around bag tracking is absolutely critical. Technology will revolutionize our industry, improve customer experience, and simplify our operations. And in addition to the feedback that you heard from airlines who were present at the AGM, we'd also like to show you a short interview from our Senior Vice President, Nick Karin, who was live from the AGM, where he explains why we are prioritizing RFID for baggage tracking and what's the meaning of the resolution. So let's listen to him now.
RFID is radio frequency technology that would be embedding into our baggage tags to help track our bags in the future. So it's a piece of technology, a passive tag that readers would pick up throughout the chain as the bags move through our airports and our aircraft. It's necessary because we've been able to improve the processes of baggage to a certain point. In order to be able to get it to the next level, we need to track them 100% of the time. And it's also important because our customers want us to do this. In our global passenger surveys, the statistics are compelling. They're in the 80% of customers saying they want us to track the bags. And even further to that, there are certain efficiencies to be gained by being able to utilize the data that we would garner from this to be able to improve the processes even further when it comes to handling baggage. We've come a long way in terms of knowing where our bags are and managing the process. So we're comfortable that if you build it, they will come. So for the next steps, instead of putting hard dates on it, all of our airlines, as illustrated in passing the resolution, want to do this. The business case is sound, and our customers want it as well. So we believe that it's not necessary to set a date. It's not necessarily has to be RFID. It can be other pieces of technology to track the bags, beacons, optical, you name it. However, we can do that investment where we need the airports to invest in infrastructure as well, and we need ultimately potentially government regulations to change in the future, and we also need manufacturers to be prepared to be able to supply us with what we need to be able to deliver on our promise. So in order to do that, yes, there has to be a lot of collaboration and cooperation as we move forward.
Okay, so I think we have spoken enough, and we'd now like to hear from you. So we are going to launch a quick poll now.
So we are waiting a few seconds for your answers. Okay, perfect. So we are going to close the pool now. Thank you. And we are sharing the results.
Okay, very good. So I see that most of you opted for answer C, which is the correct answer. So again, the AGM resolution was indeed a key step achieved last month to set up an RFID future for airlines and airports alike. So that is correct. And for those of you who opted for answer A and B, so the other IATA standards, recommended practice 1740C and resolution 753, well, we agree that these were important milestones achieved over the last couple of years, but they were enablers for an RFID future and not a strong commitment per se. But thanks everyone for your participation. And with that in mind, we have concluded the first module of this webinar, and I now hand over to Magali, who is going to cover the next module.
Thank you, Maureen. So in this second module, we're going to see why the air transport industry should transition to RFID. Well, it all started with IATA Resolution 753 on baggage tracking that became effective June 2018. And I hope most of you have heard about the resolution, but in a nutshell, the resolution requires for airlines to track bags at 4 minimum key points in the baggage journey. The first one is acceptance, which occurs often at check-in, and that's when the passenger hands over the baggage to the airline, and the airline then knows how many pieces of baggage have been accepted. The second tracking point is loading onto the aircraft. And of course, in there, we need to ensure that the right bag has gone onto the right aircraft. Then imagine you have a transfer in your journey. So that would be a third tracking point. And it's to ensure that the bag has been delivered and seen at the transfer process of the airport. And it does indeed help, especially when you have bags with short connections. And the fourth tracking point is arrival. This is to close the journey, and it's also to ensure that the bag has been seen at the final arrival airport. In addition to all of this, the airlines also need to share the tracking information with their interline journey partners as needed. Now, we've seen a lot of momentum over the past 3 years. So tracking is the new norm for airlines. What we've seen is that the majority of airlines tend to prioritize their implementations so that they are well advanced, especially at their hub or primary hubs, before extending to the rest of their network. Within IATA, we ensure that all IATA airline members were well aware of this resolution, that they understood the requirements, and that they also understood that the effective date was June last year. So already over 78% of airlines are going through their implementations using various methods and technologies to collect the tracking data. We also know that in 56% of cases, airlines have the capability to send and receive tracking data with their interline partners. Of course, much remains to be done to ensure that we have 100% full implementation achieved. And we also have a very good understanding as to what passengers want. Every year, IATA conducts an IATA Global Passenger Survey, and in last year's results, passenger demand for baggage tracking showed up at 84%, which is a really important percentage. And amongst that, we have 66% of passengers expecting to know where their bags are at all times, and another 28% who actually expect tracking for additional services, and those could be, for instance, when you pick up their bags from home or you deliver them to final destination, let it be a hotel or another location. And of course, with that, knowing that passenger expectations are really becoming more and more important in this area, we really need to ensure that they have confidence and they truly have quality data that can be shared with them. So that's very, very important. So you might say, well, baggage tracking seems to be, implementing in a lot of places, etc. So why does the industry need RFID? Why should we even specify a given technology? Well, we'll give you a few important elements for that. The first one is, for sure, the need to reduce baggage mishandling, and this is still an important driver, an important requirement. CETA produced their 2019 CETA Baggage IT Insights, and in there, the number of mishandled rates increased slightly by 2.2% and is now at 5.69 bags per 1,000 passengers. And at the end of the day, it costed the airline industry $2.4 billion. So this is definitely a very important driver. Secondly, there is a need as well to absolutely increase operational efficiency, and this is simply because we predict that the number of passenger is going to double, and meaning also doubling the number of bags being checked over the next 2 decades. So if we remain doing things the way we do them, it will put so much more strain to the existing baggage handling systems. And finally, the last aspect, of course, is around passengers. And as we've seen before, they really are increasing their expectations, and they do want to have access to baggage tracking information. And I'm sure all of us want them to have a very good journey and have great satisfaction. So there is really a demand for a technology that provides airlines, airports, and ground handlers with information that improves their decisions effectively and with quality. Now let's look at some of the benefits RFID could bring to the industry. We're going to zoom in on 4 main ones. First one is around improving end-to-end tracking. And with that, so we've seen already some stakeholders out there, airlines, airports, who have implemented RFID, and they do report that they see really how it helps them facilitate the implementation of 753, and it also improves their end-to-end baggage tracking. And they have seen reductions, so at an industry level, the reductions are around a 25% reduction in mishandled baggage. Another area is around the loading and offloading of an aircraft. With the RFID, there's higher automation, and the loading and offloading is done faster, resulting in fewer delays in flights. And with that, we estimate that $14,000 would be saved per million bags in operational efficiencies. Another aspect is around easing the adoption of IATA Resolution 753. Well, what do we mean by that? I was referring earlier on to 4 minimum tracking points. Well, guess what? When airlines are implementing tracking, they soon realize that they really want to have much more than just 4 tracking points. And to implement additional or to deploy at additional tracking points, RFID again would be good because it would significantly reduce costs compared to the traditional barcode scanners, for instance. And in there, we would see $25,000 per million bags savings in operational efficiencies. And last but not least, in terms of data, there would be improved data consistency with RFID, and this is because the read rate for RFID is much higher than with barcode. It's over 99.98%, so it's really, really high, and also does not require human intervention. So again, this would be another important benefit. If you want to have more information on those benefits, I truly recommend that you go on the iata.org/RFID page, and in there you will find the opportunity to download the IATA business case related to end-to-end baggage, where you will find more information. Then let's look at another aspect. So why would RFID set a better baseline compared to barcode for baggage identification? Here are a few aspects. First of all, on the costing side, RFID is very cost efficient and offers lower deployment and operational costs compared to barcode technology. Also, in some of the airports, you can see you have manual encoding stations. Well, you wouldn't use or need those any longer because you would really have a fully automated process in place with RFID. Then if you look at on the data side, so again, we did mention it before, but really the read rates being much higher than barcode, the data you collect would really be very reliable, consistent, so that would bring a higher quality. The other very important aspect is around interoperability. RFID is 100% interoperable, and what it means is that you can deploy RFID alongside and complementing existing technology such as barcode. And last but not least, RFID is also cheaper when you want to add new tracking points, and I was also referring to that in the previous slide. So I think I've provided quite a lot of information, so let's have another video that has been compiled by Auburn University, showing why RFID is the new baseline for baggage identification. So this was a bit of recreation for you to recover from some of the figures we went through. Of course, here we see it more in a retail environment, but imagine what it could do in the aviation industry, especially for the baggage operations. So with that, we've completed the second module, and we're now going to launch a new poll.
So the second question we have for you is, what are the key benefits of RFID for the industry? Please select all that apply below. So improved hand-to-hand baggage tracking, higher read rates, the only solution to identify bags, or improved aircraft loading and offloading. So we're going to wait a few seconds for your answers. And then we are going to share the results as well. Okay, I'm going to wait another 10 seconds before closing the poll. Okay, thank you for your answers. I'm closing the poll and I'm going to share the results now.
Great. So many thanks for the results. I'm discovering them as you see them as well on the screen, and this is excellent feedback, because you could definitely choose A, B, and D, and the only one that was the tricky one was C, the only solution. Of course, RFID is not the only solution out there to identify bags, so very well replied there. Thank you for that. And with that, I'd like to pass on to Andrew, who's going to cover the third module.
Good afternoon, everybody. And yes, the third module for the presentation, where we're going to cover how the industry can transition to RFID. When I finish this module, though, stay with us because we'll be doing Q&As, and we can see a few questions coming in already. So the first thing to say is that there is a wealth of material available that IATA has produced in conjunction with world-leading experts. And so, of course, the first point of call, if you're interested in RFID, is to look at Recommended Practice 1740C. Now, this specifies everything about using RFID in a baggage label. So it tells you all about the data use, it tells you all about the objects that we've defined already, it tells you how to work with RFID in general. And in addition to this, we actually do have things like an encoding tutorial and an implementation guide that you can also download. We have a very easy to remember web address for these. It's iata.org/RFID, and you'll be able to download those there. You can't download 1740C directly though, because that is an IATA official publication. It's part of the Joint Passenger Services Conference Resolution Manual, and you can purchase a copy of that. So that's the first port of call. Now, why would you be interested? What's that standard going to give you? Well, it's going to tell you about the ease of deployment of RFID. Yeah? Now, really, the way that you need to learn about these things is to pick a use case in your airline or airport and start implementing. I get asked quite frequently, well, Andrew, how do I know RFID will work? To which the answer is, it's been working for dozens of years in lots of industries. So it's used in retail, as you saw in our video. It's used in distribution management. It's used in pallet management. It's being used for ULD tracking for many years. And of course, in baggage itself, well, I was involved in it in 1998. So it's being used in baggage for some considerable time. So we're not interested, or you shouldn't be all that interested in whether or not you can get RFID to work. It will work. What you do need to do, though, is have a look at the use cases that you wish to explore. Okay, so RFID is quite easy to deploy. You can integrate it into your operation. It can be integrated seamlessly with Barcode. And the trick is to do this at your own pace. So we always say, look, let's have an easy start. Let's look at arrival tracking. That's an area where you quite often don't have existing infrastructure and where you can quite quickly get a benefit from RFID. Then, of course, we need to have a look at how you want to implement this. Yeah? So there are lots of tags that use RFID, and our 1740C specification includes performance standards. Yeah? So that's very important because we want to make sure that we have tags that work, and the performance standards give you those. There's a thing here that you might be interested in, and that is that in an RFID-enabled world, you can use both single-use disposable baggage tags and also reusable ones. And reusable RFID tags, of course, are pioneered by people like Qantas, companies like Qantas, who have already been using their Q tag for many years. But you may also be aware of the implementation at Turkish Airlines, where there's been use for frequent travellers. Then you're going to have a think about what types of reading infrastructure you want to install. So there are possible use cases for both fixed infrastructure, which means you put an antenna, and that antenna is fixed in place and just reads everything that goes past it. That's a very good use for arrival scanning, for monitoring the reflight area, for monitoring the out-of-gauge storage areas, for looking at interline transfer areas where you want to know the population of bags in a place. And we have mobile readers, which are typically handheld or wearable readers, and those will, of course, be moved around the airport as necessary. So perhaps somebody's going to be hand scanning bags onto a belt or something similar. Then you want to look at how you're going to use this. The first use case that we approach should not really be sortation, because sortation systems generally work well with Barcode, and they've been working well with Barcode for a long time. So why would you use RFID in that as your test case? You really want to be able to have a look at places where we're talking about new infrastructure. And then you've got applications that you want to get into as well. So how are you going to collect this data and use it in your applications? So exploring this, we've come up with 4 ways that you can use RFID. They're to use the inlay only. Using the inlay only means that your airline places inlays in their baggage tags and purchases baggage tags with RFID, but doesn't actually take time to encode those with any information. That simply means that they're doing a favor for the next stakeholder in the value chain. So you're going to have, in that case, bags with RFID labels, but no information necessarily encoded upon them, except that you will know their baggage tags because the standard has an application identifier that identifies RFID labels on baggage tags. So then we come to the first plausible use case, which is inlay plus association. What this means is that you're going to put inlays into baggage tags, but then read the inlay baggage tag identification, the transponder ID of the RFID label, and also the barcode. And then you're going to associate those things together and use them in all subsequent baggage messaging. So one of the things that we did in preparation for this RFID-enabled world was to update our messaging standards so that they contain both the license plate number, which is the 10-digit barcode you see printed on a bag, and also they can contain a unique identity, which in this case is the RFID transponder ID. And that transponder ID and license plate together make a permanently unique match. So you can put those things. When you've associated those, you need to put them in the messaging, because in fact, baggage labels contain very little information. All of the routing for the bag and everything else comes through messaging, which supports the movement of the baggage. And those messages are what we can read to then find the transponder identity and know which bag we're looking at. After that, we come to basic inlay encoding. And the big change here is that there will have been an investment in encoding technology at the printer level in order to write to those baggage tags. And what we're writing to that baggage tag is the 10-digit license plate plus the Julian date. For those of you who don't know what a Julian date is, it starts at 1 on January the 1st, and it goes up to 365 or 366, depending upon what year it is. So we encode that, and that allows us to work just off the RFID tag, because we can then read either the transponder identity, or we can read the or we can read the barcode inlay, and we're then able, we can then read the barcode, and we're then able to work with either of those to achieve the baggage applications that we need to work with. And then the last way that we're looking at this is what we call rich inlay encoding. And rich inlay encoding means we're going to put additional information in the RFID inlay. Typically, this is going to be the routing information, flight numbers and dates. And the advantage of doing this is that in the event that you have a messaging failure, you're still able to process the bags. You're also able to do clever things in places where you might not have access to that messaging. For instance, it allows a rapid check of, is this bag going on the right flight on the right day, without needing to refer back to the message. So that's quite a potent business case for smaller outstations. So some of the applications that you might want to have a look at when regarding RFID. The first one is baggage tracking with additional points. Now this is a really key area. Bags get mishandled because we don't have enough information on where they are and enough people to intercept the bag and get it to the right place at the right time. So this baggage tracking piece can be used to introduce all types of clever handling. And I'm talking about being able to understand which bags are waiting for pickup at your out-of-gauge area, which bags are in a container waiting for interline transfer pickup, which bags have been left in some dark corner of a baggage handling system because there was a shift change and the first handler put them there knowing that they'd be brought out later on, but neglected to tell the second handler when he came on to shift. So there's a lot of areas there that we can work with. Also, just having more information on where bags are lets you make a critical decision. And that critical decision is, should this flight close its doors and push now? Or should we make use of some of the 15 minutes time that we normally have between close and push to actually find those bags and bring them to the flight? So those are good key operational principles. Then we look at something like operational recovery. Operational recovery is just that. Something bad has happened, we've had a bad day, we have tens of thousands of bags lying around the airport in locations, and now we're going to send out teams to scan those bags with handheld scanners and bring the bags for the next immediate flight in. Very important stuff. Rush journey changing means that we're going to have a look at which flight we should be putting the bag on next and update it. And here we can monitor the whole rush area and see which bags should be prioritized first and present that information as a list to a handler so that that happens in the right order. It's very common for bags that have been rushed onto a flight to miss their intended flight because that's happened just too late. Rerouting is a key airline challenge. Basically, the bag is in the right place for the right flight, and then the passenger changes their flight, and we have to find the bag and bring it round to the correct one. Well, again, here we can monitor each build output and check that there are no bags for different flights at that output. And then finally, we have repatriation, getting the bag back to the passenger as quickly as possible. This, again, during disruption, when your passengers where they're not expecting to be, and their bag is in a queue, you can actually specify the bag, walk through the area, and find that. The RFID readers will act as a Geiger counter, so you'll be able to find the appropriate bag. So imagine now that you want to come and work with IATA on this brave RFID journey. There are some things that we're doing that may be of use to you. One is that we have regional workshops going on. There are 5 of them for this year. Some have already taken place, but there is one upcoming in the United Arab Emirates and one in Qatar. Then we have Asia Pacific and China coming along. So we have a chance for you to come and meet the team in person, hear from some of the experts, and be able to voice your questions and get inspired. We also have a couple of country workshops coming up. That's country-specific activities where we believe those countries will do better by having a little bit of extra attention. And we're going to be repeating those next year as well. We're running these webinars, so this is a good opportunity. You come in for the first one, there will be more, but don't think you'll be getting the same old story again. The fact is, we have a complete menu of webinar content for you, and it won't be the same old voices again. So if you're thinking, gosh, this chap's very boring, don't worry. In future webinars, you have some other experts. There's a number of global industry events that are taking place, not run necessarily by IATA, but we will be there talking about baggage at things like FTE and at a number of events during the year. And then, of course, we have communications that go out. We have newsletters. You should be following IATA on Twitter to see what's being said there, because we quite often promote things through that. So that's on a very public level. On a more individual level, IATA is engaging with a number of key stakeholders in order for us to promote RFID to them. So if you're a busy airport, we will be coming to see you and to talk to you about RFID and to look at where you can best deploy it. And if you're an airline, well, we've probably spoken to you already, but we will be there again. And then, of course, we have some tools that are available for the industry. These are things like our guidance documentation, some business cases, business templates are being produced to allow you to plug your own figures in. And then, of course, we're looking for your feedback on a number of these in order to allow us to develop them further and fine-tune our approaches for the industry. So, we want you to join with us, and we want you to join with us by thinking of your next step. If you run an airport or a ground handling operation, where are your gaps today? What would it be nice to have information about? And then pick a use case. Pick the subject matter that you're interested in. Yeah. Get a trial going in order to prove that business case, in order to look at that, and then have a look at the most cost-efficient way of getting that data. I will bet you a pound to a penny that it will be RFID that wins that bet. So RFID probably will make sense for you, and then you can start planning your implementation. And of course, you need an airline to be working with you in this. So one of the key things is airport and airline joint meetings, joint communication. Do make sure that you're using our IATA resources. Do get hold of the implementation guides and join our workshops. And then you can contact our baggage team, baggage@iata.org. You'll see that on later slides, in order for you to be able to get one-to-one feedback. Now, you have probably heard enough of all these presentations today, and that is the end of the factual information dump. But we do have another poll for you. So I'd like to hand over to the poll now, and then we'll have a look at your answers in a few moments.
Thank you, Andrew. So the last question we have for you is, what are the activities planned by IATA to push RFID adoption? So please select all that apply. Engage airports and airlines, conduct regional workshops, develop support tools and materials, and organize a one-off webinar on RFID. So we are going to wait a few seconds for your answers. Okay, I will close the poll now in 10 seconds. Perfect. Thank you very much for your answer. So I'm sharing the results just now.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, for taking part in that. So what are the activities? Yes, we're going to be engaging. We try to be engaging in every contract that we have. We are going to be doing the regional workshops. Yes, well done for those of you who mentioned that. Support tools and materials. Yes, great. The organizer one-off webinar. 21% of you, please do not miss the next webinar. We have lots of different subjects. We're going to be covering different material in each of these webinars. Not a one-off, there is a whole series of them. You will receive information on those into your mailbox. Please make sure that you get us out of your spam lists, into your inbox, and into your calendars, because those webinars are going to be great. So, back to the slides. What rests for me to say is thank you very much for attending so far. And if you have questions and you haven't already submitted them, now is your chance to do so. So please feel free to give further questions, and we will do our best to answer the ones that we already have.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michael. And thanks also to Maureen and Magali. We've had quite a few questions that come in so far, so let's start off. The first one is for you, Andrew. Someone has said here, we see a lot of exciting developments happening with optical AI, biometrics, etc. Why promote RFID rather than the newer technologies that are out there?
That's a very good question, and one that we do get asked quite a few times. In the area of RFID, we have 20 years of experience of building up our standards and use cases from the industry. In the area of new technologies, not to be harsh to those technologies, today we have nothing. I have no published use cases. I have no standardization activities. I have lots of people telling me that this is the next greatest thing. I don't believe that those technologies are ready for deployment tomorrow. RFID was ready for deployment 5 years ago. So, frankly, they do show great promise. I work with the people who invented those technologies and who continue to progress them. I can see clear business benefits in specific areas for those, but they're not ready yet to be the main tracking technology for the airlines. One of the follow-up questions One of the follow-up questions I then get is, why would you go for RFID if it's not going to be forever? And I don't know about you, I change my mobile phone every year. I change my computer every 2 years, change my television every 6 months. So probably in the world of business, we have a certain pace of change as well. And we expect that technologies will change. Hopefully one day there'll be an IATA project to introduce the teleportation of baggage. Until that day, we're going to stick with RFID whilst it still makes sense. So we don't plan on changing it in the near term.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I definitely look forward to teleportation. We have a question now from Magali. Someone has asked in, how can this new technology be deployed without costing billions?
That's another excellent question. Thank you for that. Well, I would say, first of all, so here what we presented during this webinar when we took you through the industry business case, etc., one of the first things for you to consider is very much to look at your specificities, your requirements, your realities, and please do a cost-benefit analysis at your level. But if you look at, we can give you some generic indicators. Yes, you would have capital expenditure, but imagine that RFID readers have a significantly lower acquisition cost than, for instance, the traditional barcode scanners. And also when you look at some of the operating expenditure, if you look at maintenance costs, they are lower for RFID readers compared to, for instance, automated tag readers. The read rate for RFID we already saw is much higher than with barcodes. You have fully automated processes, so it does eliminate costs associated with manual operations and labor. And the other thing as well that we've seen is the price of RFID tags have really come down significantly, and I'm sure as the industry engages more and more and deploys more and more, that cost is going to come further down. So those are just generic indicators to bear in mind.
Thank you so much. Maureen, we've got a question here for you. Someone has asked, who has started implementing RFID around the world?
Okay, yeah, that's a question that we get asked quite often as well. We notice that there is really some interest from the industry to know what's happening and who is doing what. So indeed, we see a lot of initiatives taking place around the world, and we do expect to see a lot more developments now that the RFID resolution was passed. So there are some airports and airlines that are considered pioneers of RFID. I'm thinking of Hong Kong Airport, Las Vegas, Newark, Delta Airlines, just to name a few. And these stakeholders have agreed to share learnings back with the industry on what they've experienced with RFID, and they are featured in our RFID implementation guide that you've heard about throughout this webinar. So we really encourage you to take a look at it, and we will be publishing actually a new case study as Milan Malpensa Airport has agreed to share their experience as well. We also see a lot of trials and proof of concepts taking place in the different regions. I'm thinking of Heathrow Airport, for example, and other major airports around the world, and it's often led by an initiative from SkyTeam member airlines, so a lot to come from this alliance. And we also expect to see a strong momentum from China in the next coming months, as the government has issued an advisory which includes adopting RFID for all Tier 1 and Tier 2 airports. So yeah, thanks. It's actually a very good question. And as we get asked often what's happening with the industry, we are actually working on producing a world map that would show the status of RFID adoption across the different regions. And we hope to have it ready by end of the year. So stay tuned. More to come on this.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Maureen. Magali, I'm coming back to you with another question. Someone has said, is IATA already working with strategic partners on the solutions? And are these people coming from the aviation industry, but are they also coming from outside as well?
So in terms of all the discussions taking place on the, let's take the example of the recommended practice 1740C, we do have strategic partners involved from the beginning, and you have a mix. I mean, I would say quite the majority of them were coming from the aviation industry or had a good understanding of the aviation industry. But as more and more momentum happened with RFID, we saw also newcomers who had less experience from the aviation industry, and it was, it's great. They have the opportunity to input, to comment in some of the key discussions occurring in the governance aspect.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Andrew, there's another question here for you. Do companies manufacturing aircraft intend to implement RFID readers in the aircraft holds? Is there anything being discussed around this?
That's a good question. So there have been trials which have been carried out by aircraft manufacturers who put reader infrastructure into the cargo doors, which would enable you to read bags on the way in and out of the aircraft. It hasn't gone beyond that stage as far as I know. We'll see. At the moment, what I have seen for people loading aircraft is to have the ground equipment converted to have RFID readers in that ground equipment that then read either the container or the bags, and that's working quite well. With aircraft infrastructure, of course, you're always thinking about weight, you're always thinking about transmission, and therefore actually having it on the ground equipment is quite an easy way to do things.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew. Right, we have time for one final question. Maureen, it's for you. How is RFID approving loading and unloading in terms of timings?
Okay, so that's another good question. Thank you. So really for an airline, that's one of the very strong use case that we talk about with RFID, because airlines would see strong benefits when they add an RFID reader onto the ramp belt loader, as it reduces manpower by at least one when loading and unloading the aircraft. So that would be, just in a nutshell, a good example to improve efficiency and save timing when loading the aircraft.
Great, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. Any unanswered questions will be responded to via email. Thank you very much to Andrew, Magali, and Maureen for their time today. As you leave the webinar, a survey will appear on your screen asking you to rate the webinar. Please take a moment to provide your feedback. If now is not a good time, the survey will be sent to you shortly via email. We would greatly appreciate it if you could complete this when you can. On behalf of International Airport Review and IATA, I'd like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. Goodbye.